To keep an agile, adaptive brain, which is really what, 55, 70, 80-year-olds can get better and better at, this agile, possibility thinking mind, is facing a problem with sort of excitement about how many solutions can I come up and what can I try. So those are the type of strategies that we give individuals.
Welcome to BrainStorm by Us Against Alzheimer's, a patient-centered nonprofit organization. Your host, Meryl Comer, is a co-founder, 24-year caregiver, an Emmy Award-winning journalist, and the author of the New York Times bestseller, Slow Dancing with a Stranger.
This is BrainStorm, and I'm Meryl Comer. Joining us is Dr. Sandra Bond Chapman, founder and chief director of the Center for Brain Health at UT Dallas, who recently updated us on the ongoing brain health project designed to boost neuroplasticity and rewire our brains after 55. Today, we look at how you can strengthen your brain so those stressors don't take you down. Welcome, Sandy. Thanks so much for joining us.
You bet. It's always great, Meryl, to be with you.
Sandy, you've described the stressors in our lives combining to create what you call a perfect storm for our brain health. What does that mean?
We are living in a world where all of us are feeling so stressed. And what I tell people, and we try to instruct them, stress in and of itself is not bad. And I would talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of stress. Let me just say to start off, it's good because when you're under stress, if it's just acute, like perhaps you don't make me nervous, but if I were nervous, if I didn't know you, it would elevate me. It would make me more motivated. It would kind of trigger my brain to be more excited about what I was doing, and I would be ready for any action. So that's what stress can be, really one of these big energizers, if you think about. What is bad about stress is chronic stress. And when we're under chronic stress, where we never get a reprieve from it, if I were just constantly thinking, I can't make it, then we see, really significant brain losses over and over again. We see dendritic spines reduce, we see reduction in the hippocampus, and we see significant memory loss, brain fog, loss of sleep, all of the things that make our brain not healthy. The longer those last, those stressors, then you really are looking at some of the toxic buildups that we talk about in Alzheimer's disease. It's really the whole imbalance of your neuropharmacy, or the neurochemicals that we see that are in your brain: dopamine, norepinephrine. And what I tell people, a little bit of norepinephrine and dopamine are good, like a little bit of rain shower, how your flowers bloom. But then if you have a flood, your flowers die. So, it's really like that when we get too much norepinephrine and dopamine.
So, Sandy, when you're living in a prolonged state of stress, are you really aware of it because it's been prolonged?
I think most people know when they're under stress, and it's something that we look at in the Brain Health Project, is what is the level of stress. And people, whether they're at all ages, all decades, this isn't something that gets worse and worse. It actually is something that's pervasive across the entire lifespan.
The first of the baby boom generation turns 80 this year. So how should someone interpret familiar signals like forgetting something, losing their train of thought, why did I walk back up the stairs, or feeling mentally foggy? Is that what the aging brain inevitably looks like or has to look like?
We now know pretty clearly that cognitive decline, in terms of some areas like speed of processing, how quick you draw up on things, working memory is something that we lose. But your ability to reason, come up with the name later, is something that should not get worse. It's just that we have bought into this idea that, well, I'm 70, I'm 80, I'm 90. Of course, I'm not going to be as sharp. Physically, we've changed our mindset. We really haven't bought into brain resilience like we have physical resilience. So no, this idea of accepting cognitive decline is really, to me, one of the most unfortunate things that we've bought into, that science is clearly not saying. Now, it's not that we're going to be able to learn as fast as we could, remember as much as we could, but there's things that the aging brain is actually better at doing, and that's synthesizing, problem solving, possibility thinking, seeing things from a broader perspective. That is what makes your brain healthy and helps you to thrive.
I did a little checking and I found that brain games, the downloads are now in the hundreds of millions. So they're driving our need to manage our anxiety to ward off dementia, right? Are they a reliable prevention strategy? And if not, what, if anything, do they contribute to our brain health?
Brain games can be good. There's strategy games, that make you learn certain strategies. There's also some social games that have you come together and do things with people, or you have competition. Sometimes people do Wordle and compete with different members of the family.
I'll raise my hand on that one.
But I would say for the most part, they make you better at playing the game. They don't make you better at the things that I say: problem solving, solving the complexity of how do you deal with stress, connecting warmly with people that you disagree with, the things that keep your brain moving forward in a very major way. I would typically tell someone, especially when I'm walking on a plane and I see people playing games, I want to tap them on the shoulder and say, if you let your brain rest, it would do better than if you play the word game.
People think of brain health now in terms of puzzles or the games, and you're really advocating that people adopt brain healthy strategies and daily practices instead, right?
That's really how you use your brain to think versus just keep it busy all the time is really not the way to keep it stronger. We teach people, for example, all the people that are listening today to this podcast. Um, what I would recommend is one of the strategies that we teach people is, what are two takeaways that you're going to take from this 30-minute podcast? Not what is everything that we've said and you're just enjoying certain things that you're hearing, but what are two things that are resonating with you? And then how are you going to zoom out and think about, how can I apply that in my life? And then how can you share it with different people? It's taking information at a deeper level, the constant information that you're taking. So taking less in and going deeper as you think about it. So that's what the strategies really teach us to do. Uh, One of the other strategies that we teach is what we call possibility thinking. So to keep an agile, adaptive brain, which is really what 55, 70, 80-year-olds can get better and better at, this agile possibility thinking mind, is facing a problem with sort of excitement about how many solutions can I come up and what can I try. So those are the type of strategies that we give individuals at all walks of life. And we see very significant changes in the parts of the brain, the frontal executive network, which is sort of your one that can see changes happening, but also stability to stay on task. People have regained as much as 2 decades back of neural health when they use the strategies.
So if I hear you correctly, there's a fundamental difference between just staying busy mentally, which would be brain games perhaps, and intentionally training the brain for resilience and performance.
Exactly. So keeping your brain busy, one of the things that we as a society haven't really bought into is the importance of sleep and periods of rest throughout the day. So one of our other strategies that we teach people is to take 5-minute breaks 5 times a day throughout the day so that you can constantly reset it to stop this cycle of push, 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 more, 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 but you have stopping points to clear out the toxins from stress, all the cortisol that builds up that destroys the hippocampus that we were talking about. It's rest and prioritizing sleep. We now know that sleep is not something that's just that it's a good thing to have, it's a must have. And if you want to clean out beta amyloid and tau, the best way to do that is through a good night's rest and starting much earlier than after the disease has already started.
Most of us live with constant distractions. So, why does our current lifestyle so often work against how our brain was really designed to function?
Yeah, I mean, this world where speed, instant responses, changing distractions, we are building an ADHD brain. People often ask me, so it's our technology. And I say, is it our technology? Yes, I say, yes, it is. But it's also you. You do have control over how much you use your technology and how much you use distractions. So it requires this intentionality. People now are probably interrupted at least every 3 minutes. It takes 30 minutes, which I'm glad your podcast is 30 minutes, for people to get into something. One of the things that we're trying to do with the Brain Health Project is measure in real time the mental cost of doing that. And that's really, when people can see that it's costing them of doing that, then I think that they will at least do it less, at least do it less. But you're right. That's our world, and we have to live in this world. So what do we do? How much control can you put over how much distractions you're ready to allow?
So, is it really possible to measure brain health beyond diagnosing a problem?
Brain health is, are you able, just think of where you are now. It's being able to maintain where you are now or improve it. That to me is brain health. Um, Brain decline is when you start to lose those capacities. So we really haven't had any measures until the Brain Health Index that could measure the upward growth in the human brain from this multidimensional aspect. You can maybe measure that your memory is getting better, your speed of processing is getting better, but we don't know how that relates to real life function. The Brain Health Index measures your brain being maintained both in your terms of your social connectedness and purpose, your emotional balance, and your ability to be a possibility thinker and to see how far you can strengthen it.
Some of our audience may not be aware that your early work was really around the military.
Actually, Meryl, we're still doing that. We have a optimal brain health for warfighters. We're actually trying to become a program of record where from the very beginning, military, when they join, they get a brain health index and they get the training. Right now, we've trained almost 750, and they say no one's really trained us how to do the neck up checkup, how to keep it strong like this. It's all about the body and physical, but right now, war is really more about how you think, what you do, how you solve problems, how you relate to your tribe, as well as the enemy, what to do. So they said this is the first time we've gotten that. So it's actually grown even more significant. Many of the people, as you were alluding to, had significant brain injuries, repeated concussions, as much as 50 to 70 concussions, PTSD. With the training and the index, they realized that they could repair their brain, whether it was 1 year, 5 years, or 20 years. After sustaining that, we were able to show significant brain gains, even after experiencing some of the most horrific events. But it also decreased depression by as much as 60% and stress by 40%. And many of them were able to come off of the massive medications that they were on. So getting the idea that peak performance, for physical performance, what is your peak performance? It never stops. For your brain, it's even higher. And what's exciting for us is the military are not afraid of their brain. They don't have the same stigma. They're ready to go for it. So they actually motivate us, as why wouldn't the general population want to do everything they could to keep their brain stronger, more resilient?
Let's look at one of the biggest life transitions as we age, and that I would look at as as retirement. So what happens to the brain when you move from a very highly structured, purpose-driven routine into something that, what do I do today, right?
Retirement is the period where we see the greatest drop in cognitive decline. And, when I say brain health is cognitive, its connectedness, and its ability to have emotional balance, all three of those decline very markedly. So, is it because your brain changed or is it because what you do? I think it's the best example of how you use your brain is what keeps it strong or makes it decline. It makes it decline in a very significant way. We have so many participants that during this period, and they're surprised when they retire to see this drop off, and they're like, oh, I thought now I could, kind of relax. And we're like, yes, you can relax, take it, but you still need to keep your brain in this challenge period because to keep it strong, you can't have lower level of cognitive demands. Again, brain health is not just about cognition and memory. It's so much more. It's your ability to relate to difficult people, your ability to have a purpose and find that. And retirement can be the perfect time to find purpose and to do it with all mental gusto as possible.
For someone listening right now and paying attention and feeling overwhelmed, give us one practical brain healthy strategy that they can implement in the next 10 minutes to start shifting out of that state.
If you're feeling stressed, what I would say is identify it, zoom in to the stress and say, what are you feeling stressed about? And then zoom out. What is meaningful about that stress? Why are you doing it? Is it something that you want to solve? Is there a way that you could kick into possibility gear thinking of how to get excited about it? What I say is switch your stress, your distress to what's called eustress, which is a positive side because it's really how you frame it. And then put it in a time frame that you're willing to give it 30 minutes to work on right after this to get excited about your stress and then rest. So take your stress, think about what is meaningful. Why are you stressing about it? Because if your stress is probably something that means something to you and you want to tackle it, carve out just a small amount of time that you're willing to give it and then try to tackle it when you leave here. And then when you're done, we want you to embrace what's possible from that. So take distress and make it eustress. Reframing it changes the brain very dramatically.
Sandy, that's great advice. But when I was listening to you, I was also thinking, what would you tell procrastinators?
All of us are procrastinators a little bit on certain things. It's usually something we dread. And I typically say, whatever it is you're procrastinating on, break it down into one small chunk, two small chunks, do two things toward that task that's only going to take 30 minutes. And then celebrate when you finish that and have a brain rest. Go outside and get awe. But we procrastinate because we make tasks bigger than they are. If you will just break it down, do two small steps toward it, you will see, oh, that wasn't so bad. You'll celebrate because you'll get a dopamine ping and your brain will go, that was good. And you'll be glad that you made progress on it.
All right, I can't resist. What about multitaskers? Women pride themselves on being multitaskers.
In this society where we pride ourselves in doing two things, our brain isn't wired to do two things. We're literally putting on the accelerator and the brake back and forth like this and fraying our connections really toxically. We're pouring cortisol on the hippocampus. People that are chronic multitaskers look just like someone with early stage Alzheimer's disease with the amount of atrophy. So single tasking is one of the greatest gifts you can do for your brain. And I say if we would just realize that multitasking is to the brain as cigarette smoking is to the lungs. If you're going to multitask, you might as well just pull your cigarette out and just give it up.
So as we think about the future of aging, tell us what it would look like to live in a society that prioritizes brain optimization the way we prioritize physical fitness.
Can you imagine if we were living these robust lives and we had our mental capacity that instead of right now, most people in their 80s are exceptions when they still have their complete mental robustness, but it doesn't have to be like that. One of the most exciting findings that we really hadn't anticipated is that in our study, as we track people over three years, so not just 6 months, which was what the first study, but 3 years, we see 75 to 80% of the people show significant gains from the time they started from their baseline to 3 years later. And this is where we saw 20-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 70-year-olds improving significantly. And even people that were in the category that we would say, oh, I might be a little worried, I've got mild cognitive impairment, they didn't show the same level of gain immediately, but they showed a delayed gain. But even they began to show a gain after continuous using their brain in these strategic ways. So for me, that people can continuously improve their brain over 3 years, I think 30 years, 40 years, 50 years to close the gap from, remember, our lifespan is 80 and our peak brain years is 30. We're going to close that gap to 50 years if people work on it.
Well, I know you're leading the way, so
let's go.
Our guest has been Dr. Sandra Bond Chapman, founder and chief director of the Center for Brain Health at UT Dallas. And she's given us great news. Our brains are dynamic, trainable across the lifespan, and that it's never too late to start. So we're going to start now. You can join the Brain Health Project at centerforbrainhealth.org. Test your BHI, which is your Brain Health Index. It's free. And that's it for this edition. I'm Meryl Comer. Thank you for brainstorming with us.
Subscribe to BrainStorm through your favorite podcast platform and join us for new episodes on the first and third Tuesday of every month.